This is the story of a man who helped put humans on the moon, but built his legacy in the shadow of Nazi Germany. A man who worked with Walt Disney, but once wore the black uniform of the SS. A man who dreamed of space, while thousands died building the rockets that made it possible. Was he a visionary, a war criminal, a scientific genius, or something far more complicated? Before we landed on the moon, before NASA, before the world knew his name, there was something darker. This is the untold story of Wernher von Braun, Nazi genius or American hero. Born in 1912 to a wealthy German family, Wernher von Braun dreamed of reaching space. He once strapped fireworks to a toy car and nearly set a Berlin street on fire. By his 20s, he had a PhD and was designing long-range rockets for Hitler's army, just as the world was sliding into war. Von Braun's greatest early achievement was the V-2 rocket, the world's first ballistic missile. Fast, deadly, unstoppable, and entirely funded by the Nazi regime. Launched from Nazi-occupied Europe, the V-2 terrorized London and Antwerp. But its most horrifying legacy wasn't in where it landed, it was how it was built. In the Harz Mountains, an underground complex known as Mittenbau Dora housed tens of thousands of slave laborers, Jews, political prisoners, civilians dragged from occupied territories. They worked in darkness, breathed toxic fumes, ate almost nothing. They built von Braun's rockets by hand and died by the thousands. Could von Braun have not known? Survivor testimonies and Nazi records say otherwise. He visited the underground factory. He walked the tunnels. He saw the conditions and kept going. In 1940, he joined the SS. In 1943, he helped coordinate labor needs with SS officers. Von Braun later claimed it was all bureaucratic and that he was just an engineer. But history suggests something far more complicit. As the Third Reich collapsed, von Braun and his team fled towards American lines. They destroyed evidence, erased their tracks, and turned themselves in, not to the Soviets, but to the United States. American intelligence knew his past, the SS membership, the slave labor, but the Cold War was starting, and they didn't want justice. They wanted rockets. So began Operation Paperclip, a secret program that brought over 1,600 Nazi-affiliated scientists to the U.S. Von Braun, he was the crown jewel.
2, 1, 0, all engine running. Liftoff, we have a liftoff, 32 minutes past the hour. Liftoff on Apollo 11.
In the 1950s, von Braun became head of the Marshall Space Flight Center in Huntsville, Alabama, a major NASA facility. He wasn't just working for NASA, he was leading it. As NASA's chief architect of the Saturn V, von Braun had a direct hand in every phase of the Apollo program. He briefed presidents. He led thousands of engineers. He was the public face of the American space ambition. Featured in magazines and television, he also was in Walt Disney specials. For millions of Americans, he was a hero, a German scientist who embraced freedom and helped beat the Soviets to the moon. Few asked what he had done to get there. They called it the America rocket, the rocket that was supposed to destroy New York City. In the final years of the war, Wernher von Braun and his team began working on a terrifying extension to the V-2, a massive intercontinental ballistic missile capable of crossing the Atlantic and striking the United States. Officially, it was known as the A9-A10 project, a two-stage missile system developed at Peenemünde and designed to hit targets up to 5,000 kilometers away. Its goal? New York City. The A-9 would serve as the upper stage, a winged rocket capable of gliding back into the atmosphere. The lower A-10 stage was a monster, nearly 20 meters tall, fueled by kerosene and liquid oxygen. Together, they would launch from occupied Europe, arc into the stratosphere, and rain destruction on American soil. Von Braun led the engineering, the Nazi regime provided the funding, and the SS supplied the labor. Tens of thousands of prisoners once again forced to build a weapon designed to end the war by terror. But it was never finished. Allied bombing raids crippled Peenemünde facility in 1943. Resources were diverted to the already struggling V2 program. And as Germany's front collapsed, the A9-A10 project was quietly buried, incomplete, but not forgotten. If it had succeeded, if New York had been destroyed by a rocket with von Braun's name on it, would America have ever welcomed him? Would he have been the face of NASA, or would he have been hung at Nuremberg with the others?
But why, some say, the moon? Why choose this as our goal? And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things.
He stood beside the President of the United States, smiling, confident, wearing a suit, not a uniform. Wernher von Braun wasn't just accepted in America. He had the ear of the most powerful man in the world, John F. Kennedy. Their alliance was strategic, but undeniable. Von Braun was the technical genius. JFK was the visionary who needed him. In 1961, Kennedy stood before Congress and declared that America would send a man to the moon before the decade was out.
I believe that this nation should commit itself to achieving the goal before this decade is out of landing a man on the moon and returning him safely to the earth. No single space project in this period will be more impressive to mankind or more important for the long-range exploration of space.
Behind that bold promise was von Braun. He briefed Kennedy personally. He explained launch trajectories, propulsion stages, and the orbital mechanics in the language that the president could sell to the world. And Kennedy listened. Photographs show them walking side by side at Cape Canaveral, both staring skyward. But the smiles were for the cameras. In private, things were colder. JFK, a war hero who fought the Nazis, reportedly had deep reservations about the Nazi scientists inside NASA. He never publicly mentioned von Braun's past, but he also never embraced him by name. Still, Kennedy knew the space race wasn't about morality, it was about beating the Soviets, and for that, von Braun was essential. Some say Kennedy used him. Others say von Braun used Kennedy. The truth? They needed each other. And when the Saturn V rocket finally thundered into the sky, both their legacies were sealed in fire and steel.
2, 1, 0, all engine running.
At the Nuremberg trials, top Nazi officials were tried for crimes against humanity, including the use of forced labor. But von Braun never charged. He said he was just a scientist, that he had no control, that he didn't know. But those who lived through Dora say otherwise. They remember him, not just as a man in uniform, but as a man who watched and stayed silent. Von Braun died in 1977 at the age of 65. He was buried with military honors. Today, his legacy lives on in museums, schools, street names, even the U.S. Space and Rocket Center in Huntsville. But at Dora, you won't find his name, just a wall of the dead prisoners who built the rockets and never left the tunnels. Before his death in 1977, von Braun reportedly shared a chilling warning, not about space, but about Earth. Dr. Carol Rosen, who worked closely with von Braun in his final years, says he warned her about an upcoming deception, a false flag alien invasion staged by world powers to militarize space. According to Rosen, von Braun laid out a sequence: first communism, then terrorism, then rogue nations, and finally a fake extraterrestrial threat. The final card, he said, would be the alien card. He allegedly told her, "Don't believe it. It's all a lie. Space should be kept for peace." No documents back up the story. No witnesses confirm it, but the warning stuck. Was it paranoia? Or was it the final truth from a man who already served two masters? He changed the world, but at what cost? We reached the moon, but we used a man who once served a regime to commit genocide to get there. Was he a visionary, or was he just someone who knew when to switch flags? Wernher von Braun, Nazi genius or American hero? You can tell me in the comments. History Exposed is dedicated to the loving memory of my pops, WJC, a World War II veteran and my hero. His service, courage, and legacy are the reason this channel exists. If you could do me a favor and please subscribe, and for our next story, please click right here. See you next time.